Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for another Word Balloon Live. Tonight it's all about boxing as I welcome back the writers and editors of Ringside Seat, and it's a special edition of Word Balloon, the Big Bout podcast. Joining me, as always, we've got editor-in-chief Bill Detloff, art director Mike Cronenberg, Don Stradley, one of the fine columnists and article writers, and Nigel Collins, the Hall of Famer, with more great contributions to the latest issue and always on Ringside Seat. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see everybody. Absolutely. Very full issue. Mostly here, I got to switch over to my overlays of the various photographs of the issue that Michael has provided. But the cover story is the Brat Pack, the young, in some cases already title holders, but certainly key contenders as well in some of the hot divisions. And it's great to look at these guys and get a little more background from them from the magazine.
Yeah, thanks, John. That's a piece by Jason Langendorf that I asked him to do. And it occurs to me as I'm looking at the cover and at the beautiful design that Michael did, as usual, that I'll feel very fortunate if we get the fights we want to out of these guys, which is kind of a sad commentary, right? And as Nigel knows, it didn't used to be unusual when the best fought the best and sought out the best. But I think right now it is unusual. I don't think it's going to be that way forever, but right now we're struggling a little bit with finding the very best guys to fight the very best. But I think at least a few of these guys will fight one another. I'm hopeful anyway. And they really make some great fights. So this was really to bring to light these guys and how they match up with one another, and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and Jason Langendorf did a good job, as he always does.
So so the guys here that we've got and everything, we got Shakur Stevenson, and we got
Devin Haney.
Devin Haney, absolutely. Help me out on the other three.
Yeah, Ryan Garcia, Tank Davis, and Lopez.
Right.
What's his first name?
Teofimo Lopez, who I wanted to talk about with his upcoming fight as well. No, I'm with you, man. And again, it's these it's funny, every generation we get a new term in boxing, and now it's the promotional silos that kind of keep these guys from fighting each other. And you know, only top ranked fighters will fight top ranked fighters. Al Heyman fighters will only fight Al Heyman fighters. You know, it seems like maybe damn it, the guy behind DAZN is able to kind of work with both of those camps and manage to get his fight. Again, at least that's a perception as a viewer. And Eddie Hearn. I couldn't think of Eddie Hearn's name.
It seems like when the fighters want to, it happens. Like Sean Porter's going to fight Terrence Crawford now, right? He's crossing the line. They're with different promotional outfits, right? So when the fighters want it, it can happen. I don't know. We'll see.
But in the case of Porter, not a title holder, and certainly prior to Errol Spence's injury before his Pacquiao fight, everybody wanted Crawford and Spence. It is good that we're getting Porter.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, and also, God damn it, it really seems to me, and everybody take the jump ball, that it is the welterweight division where the most talent is right now in boxing.
It's up there. It's up there. It's in the top 3 or 4, I'd say, the most talented divisions in the sport. Gentlemen, yeah, your name?
I like the lightweight division is a good division too. It's loaded with good talent.
Sure. With Gervonta Davis and Teofimo Lopez, and And
the heavyweights may not be the most talented, but they do make a lot of noise, which is part of the game too.
Indeed.
But Nigel, wouldn't you think that honestly this generation of heavyweights is the biggest or most talented in, I would say, decades? I mean, I remember talking to Bert Sugar back in the mid '90s when Foreman was still had the title, and I'm like, man, it sucks right now. And he's like, you're absolutely right. And even Saraceno would agree with us and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, it hasn't been this bad in a really long time. But yeah, I mean, honestly, at least there are 3 other contenders out there, it seems to me, that are worthy of discussion.
Well, yeah, the heavyweights. I like the heavyweights. I don't know if they're the best division. They're probably not as good as the welterweights, but yeah, they're worth watching.
What do you think, Nigel?
Yeah, I mean, there are some good heavyweight fights. I've just been, I don't know, it's been so long, I'm getting bored waiting for them. It's,
Yeah.
After a while, I don't give a damn.
I understand. By the way, I think it was Eric Raskin. Great editorial about Tyson Fury, kind of
Oh, yeah, it was funny.
really at the crossroads of could be an all-time great, could be this generation's Riddick Bowe. And I absolutely agree.
Yeah, it's a good angle from Eric. And if I can back up a little bit, John, it was funny that you just said that in the 90s, the heavyweights were awful, because now, and this is the way it happens, I keep going back to this, now people look back at the 90s heavyweights and say, man, those guys were badasses. That was the last great heavyweight era. You had David Tua and Ike Ibuchi and Lennox Lewis and Moore and Foreman and Ray Mercer and Brew Cooper and Riddick Bowe. There were a lot of good heavyweights in the 90s. It seemed like it. Well, it seems like it now. I don't know if it seemed like it in Holyfield, of course. So I don't know if it seemed like it then, but it sure as hell seems like it now. I take any of those guys over the guys we have today.
And it was that pre-Lewis Bowe period where we had that conversation. But you're absolutely right, Bill. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, they seem like killers when we look back on them now. But yeah, that was a great column by Eric, with his usual flair and humor. But yeah, and we tried to frame it so that people would be interested if we said, here's the one guy who can beat Tyson Fury. And a lot of people saw through that as we're just saying it's Tyson Fury, right? But Eric did a good job of it anyway, and I think he's largely right, because as much as I guess he can fight, I guess he can fight when he wants to. He's just a little mentally, I don't know if he's all there, He seems to make some odd choices, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and again,
the whole COVID thing also was just like totally puzzling. It's like, do you have COVID? And then he's at car dealerships, picking up cars, and
I know. And I should say, I don't want to monopolize this, but I should say that I can't figure out whether I like Fury in the ring or not, because I thought the second Wilder fight was awful to watch. He was awful to watch, even though he was dominant in my view. He was terrible to watch, so clumsy and awful. But in the first Wilder fight, he was brilliant. A guy that big, moving like he was, and counterpunching and boxing Wilder's ears off, he looked brilliant. So I guess my affection for him is determined by the style he chooses to fight in. But I don't know what the deal is with the guy.
That's interesting.
Most people would say the second fight was more entertaining.
That's what I was going to say, Nigel. Yeah. Absolutely. And also,
I don't feel that way.
There was that element.
Contrarian.
What was that, Nigel?
Because you're a contrarian.
No, I found the second fight boring and really terrible to watch. Just because they both looked terrible. At least in the first fight,
what was
Fury looked good. Pardon?
What was terrible about it? The one-sidedness or what?
No, not at all. They both looked like they couldn't. They looked like a couple of football players who never fought before.
Come on.
No, I
didn't. Yeah, I got to disagree. Yeah, man.
No, I didn't feel that way. They both looked awful to me.
You feel he didn't beat the shit out of them?
Sure he did, but it's so what? Eddie, you can beat the shit out of somebody, you still look like shit doing it, right? He looked brilliant in the first Wilder fight.
I thought he looked very. I mean,
what does it matter? It's not
the aesthetic of the fight. The aesthetic of the fight has nothing to do with the outcome. You can beat the shit out of somebody, you still look like shit doing it. I thought it looked like shit doing it.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I would say that about the Klitschko fight, obviously.
Of course.
Klitschko, that was a shitty fight.
Yep.
The first fight with Wilder was interesting, and there was a certain amount of drama with the knockdowns. But Fury did exactly what he said he was going to do in the second fight.
He walked him down. Yeah, I agree. He did that.
Busted him up.
But he looked great. He didn't know how to fight doing it. Yeah, he did.
Know how to fight?
He looked to me like a novice.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, Bill. We're not going to change your mind, but I'm with Nigel on that, where I thought defensively, sure, in the first fight, he looked great, but it was a little too cutie pie for me, and there wasn't enough offense for me in the first fight. Second fight, I had no complaints. He used he leaned on him, but he did it all effectively within the rules, and he busted him down.
He did. He beat his edge. There's no question about that.
And did anybody think
Wilder?
Did anyone think Wilder had a chance in the rematch? I remember I thought Wilder, after knocking him down in the first fight, I thought, Wilder he knows what he has to do. He can just, he can put this guy on his back if he wants to. That's what I thought was going to happen. I was very wrong.
I thought Wilder was the stronger pick going into the rematch. Also, Don. Yep.
Wilder put himself on his own back. That was about all he could do.
Yeah.
While we're talking about it, I mean, even now, as much as Fury has Wilder's number, Wilder still has that one puncher's chance, just because of the power that he has, and has shown that he can put Fury down.
He's training in pools now or in water now to punch in water. So let's not forget that he's got that advantage now.
Well, you can remember that Marciano did that too, and
Ali did
right,
that also.
Yeah. I don't know, Nigel. I don't believe, unlike some of the heavyweights and really just fighters in general, that Emmanuel Stewart was able to kind of reconfigure their style and make them more effective. I don't know if Wilder has that capacity. He hasn't shown any dimensions in the past. And if he does have more strategy and more weapons that he has to think about, I think it's going to confuse him, frankly. Anybody?
I think I see all these videos of him lifting weights. Obviously, he's a very strong person. It's not. I wanted to see video of him learning to box backing up. Something would actually help him in a fight. But maybe those videos aren't being shown. They're secret. He now can fight backing up, but I certainly doubt it.
Well, I want to continue to talk about the magazine. And, Don, we haven't heard much from you, so I do want to talk about this Joe Palooka feature that you did, which is hilarious and fantastic.
Good old Joe.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No, and, this is primarily a lot of times a comic book podcast, so it's great to look at the comic strip and comic book. And, man, Ham Fisher, the creator of Joe Palooka, you really get into his story as much as the comic strip story as well.
Well, it's funny. The genesis of the story, it goes back a while, because I remember I originally wanted to do a story about the Joe Palooka movies. And because we've had some movie articles in the magazine. So I thought, maybe the Joe Palooka movies would be good, because there were about 15 or 18 of them done. It was sort of the Fast and Furious of its day, where there was a new Joe Palooka movie every year, and even a Palooka TV series. So I was going to do a story about the movie, that series, but as I dug into it, I became more interested in the comic strip. And like you said, Ham Fisher and his relationship with his hometown, and also just the popularity of the comic strip. I wasn't aware that it was so popular back in its heyday. That was, it ended in the early 80s. And I don't think it was ever, I'm from Massachusetts. I don't remember it ever being in Boston newspapers, but that's just one little section of the country. Apparently
Sure.
In other parts of the country, it was a big deal. People loved Joe Palooka. I started getting into the comic strip. And like you said, John, I thought this was an opportunity for Michael to have fun, because I know he likes comics, and I really imagined this could be a very colorful layout with a lot of colorful pictures and comic strip productions. I thought, well, that would be great, because most of my stories are really dark. I'm always writing about darker things.
And obscure. Don
obscure.
Really,
Here, I thought, here's a chance. Comic strips, cartoons. What more do we need? And I just wanted like a light, little amusing story to go with these colorful pictures. And I didn't know what the story was going to be, because I wasn't real familiar with it. I knew a little about Ham Fisher, mostly because he got in trouble a lot with Al Cap.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you should if you were gonna bring up maybe the Al Cap Ham Fisher feud that they had.
I mentioned it just a bit. It was at the end of his life. He got in trouble with Al Cap. They were accusing each other of a little bit of plagiarism, and Fisher accused Cap of using pornographic images, and in the Little Abner strip. There was a lot of ugly back and forth going on, and so I thought, okay, man, this story could be pretty interesting. And of course, Fisher commits suicide. So there you go. I'm back in the darkness.
That's the other
darkness.
thing. And you know, one thing that should for the audience who's watching and who normally watch John's show and who are comic book fans, this is back in the day when these comic strip artists and writers, they were mainly writer artists. You know, very few times was it somebody who was, you know, a writer and then an artist. But these people were big time celebrities. I mean, Al Cap and Ham Fisher were celebrities and made a lot of money. And at the time, back in the 40s and the 50s, being a comic book artist was, you know, I mean, that was the dregs. I mean, a lot of comic book artists didn't even want to admit that they were comic book artists. And they wished that they could have comic strips because comic strips at syndication made so much money. And they were looked at.
They were more prestigious.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. They were much more prestigious than comic books. Of course, things have changed. But
yeah, back then, comic books were sort of a quick buck kind of thing by these kind of underhanded producers, publishers who just, they thought, yeah, we'll publish some comic books. We'll make a killing. It was just a quick buck thing. Whereas the comic strips were a little more artful. You look at some of those old strips like Flash Gordon and Tarzan, and they're very beautiful in comparison to a lot of the comic books that were being made.
There were beautiful comic books and comic book art that were coming out also. But the thing is that comic strips like Flash Gordon and what was it? Secret Agent. What was the other one that I was trying to do?
Secret Agent X9
or something.
Yeah.
Anyways, in Tarzan.
Hal Foster, Prince Valiant.
Yeah, Bern Hogarth was the artist for that. I mean, Bern Hogarth went on to be, you know, at the School of Visual Arts, become like one of the great, you know, pioneers of comic art and teaching it.
But the strips, there was more vetting to get a comic strip because it would appear in hundreds of newspapers across the country. So I think there was a higher bar to become a comic strip creator. And yeah, Ham Fisher and Al Cap, bitter rivals, but absolutely were megastars of the day when it was movies, radio, and newspapers were the big mediums. Guys, do you know if the term palooka predates the strip, as Don was asking?
It does predate a little bit. Apparently, Damon Runyon was using the term before the strip. And apparently there was a Greek word that it stems from, which means loudmouth. And I think I mentioned that in the story.
I think you did too.
Yeah.
I missed that. I'm going to have to reread that. That's awesome, man. Being a Greek guy and being a loudmouth, I think that's amazing.
Which is in loudmouth, if you trace it all. I'm sorry, Don.
Oh,
Were there
a Broadway writer whose name I can't think of took credit for coining the word palooka, and Damon Runyon started using it after that. And Runyon was another Broadway character too. So the word was around, not in great use.
What did you ask, Nigel?
I asked after if Joe Palooka had any competition, other comic strips, copycats, and stuff like that.
Yeah, Big Ben Bolt.
Yeah, Big Ben Bolt, right?
By John Cullen Murphy.
Is that around the same era?
Yes, it was a little later. I think it started in the 40s, whereas Palooka obviously started in the 30s. But it only ran through, I think, the 40s through the 60s. But I have a couple collections of the strips, and there's Comics Kingdom, which is King Features online product, and if you want to subscribe $20 a year, at least that was the price the last time I looked, you can curate your own daily comic strip pages, including Sundays, and you can get retro stuff along with the modern stuff. And I did it for a couple of years, and I was all about Flash Gordon and Joe Palooka and Big Ben Bolt. And it was really great that I could kind of create this great retro daily delivery of comic strips. And they would last the storylines would last 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever. But no, they're fantastic. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Don,
How
what I
old-
didn't realize,
how old was-
what I didn't realize was that Joe Palooka was so popular they created a Joe Palooka statue. That blew me away.
Yeah, we got
Well,
it there in the art. Here we go. There it is.
Yep.
And it looks like he's wearing a cape, like
I know.
It
Superman.
does. It does.
What's his
I want-
robe?
I wanted to just mention real quickly when you mentioned it derived from loudmouth, Don, that I wanted to say for Michael's purposes that which is also a synonym for blabbermouth.
Yes.
Uh,
That's a little honeymooners
I was gonna
thing.
say a little
yeah, a little honeymooners humor.
Joe and I, we're huge
Yeah,
honeymooners
and-
fan.
Yeah, and Don, since you were talking about something a little lighthearted that gets dark at the end, I think I might see a feature in your future on Lou Costello and boxing.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great.
Doesn't that sound good?
Yeah. Oh, that sounds great. Have you seen the video of him interviewing Max Baer in the locker room after he knocked out Tony Valenta?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And there
And
used to
Joe
be
Lewis is there too, isn't he?
Yeah, Joe Lewis
that's
is
right.
with him. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that
And-
clip. Yeah.
and he was very big in boxing. There was when I was boxing in the '80s, one of the best gyms in Jersey was out of Patterson. It was the Lou Costello boxing gym.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
I
wow.
didn't know he had a
That
gym.
is cool.
Wow. I know that all of those characters, the Three Stooges, were all big boxing fans.
Really?
And
Is that right?
Shemp died right after a fight. I believe
really?
he was taking a cab home after seeing a fight at Madison Square Garden or Sunnyside Garden or something, and he died
It
in
might
the
have been
cab
with
ride.
the barber. It wasn't a fight with his barber.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
But Lou Costello
Right,
was a
that haircut.
fighter. I mean, he fought amateur, but before he was an actor, wasn't he? Didn't
He
he?
might have. I don't remember the
I heard
history.
that.
He might have. And he had a really sad ending also,
Oh,
really tragic
yeah.
ending at a young age.
It's
So
like-
if that interests you, Don, then it's yours.
Lou Costello and the dark side of did Abbott Costello do a boxing movie? I know
Oh,
they
yeah,
met.
the Invisible Man.
Yes, to meet the Invisible Man when Abbott and Costello meet the Invisible Man.
Oh, that's right. And the Invisible Man was punching the opponent instead
Yep,
of Lou.
yep. That's
and Lou
right.
was in the ring. Yeah.
Yep.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but
actually one of the better. I mean, it's no meets Frankenstein, but
Right,
it is
right,
a
right,
decent
John.
movie.
It is one of the better ones. You're right, but it's not anywhere near Meets Frankenstein, right?
Absolutely. Nigel, tell us about your thing here. 10% off the top. The Misadventures of a Frontman. And I got confused by this Al Heyman and promoter Al Heyman. But tell us about this.
Alfonso Heyman's the boxer. Alfonso. Well, it's a true story. I didn't make any of this up. It was a time in my life when I wanted to get into boxing full time. And for a little while, before he became director of boxing at the Spectrum, I worked for Russell. I sold tickets out of the booth at the old Philadelphia Arena, and other little things, helping hang up posters and go around the gyms and stuff like that. And I've been at that maybe a couple of months, and he got hired by the Spectrum, and so that left me out of a boxing job. And he said, "Well, why don't you manage some fighters for me?" And I gave it a shot. And if you read the story, you'll know what happened. I don't think that is just specific to that era. I think that boxers are all crazy in every era. And I could have managed 5 other fighters and had, similar adventures, although I can't think. Well, Caveman Lee did rob a bank. I mentioned him, but couldn't remember his name a few shows ago. But he wasn't the desperado that Alfonso Heyman was. He robbed the bank, and he had the bag with the explosive paint in it. And, he didn't get very far. He eventually did get out of jail, but he was a pretty good little fighter. He was the guy that was knocked out by Marvin Hagler in the first round with a jab. And I guess he figured after that, well, maybe I got to change my occupation.
People should read this issue, for Nigel's story, because it's just fantastic. I read it and it was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. I just want to be able to do this thing justice. I thought it was great, Nigel.
Yeah, absolutely. No, great presentation. And yeah, as always, you're a great storyteller, Nigel. That's why we did your travels with Mary Jane conversation. And
well, the thing is, when all this was happening, when I was going through all this, it didn't really seem unusual to me. It just seemed, well, this is what's happening. I've got to deal with it. And I'm that way about most things, that, okay, this is happening, but, get a little hairy a few times. And Fred Jenkins is still a very good friend. And Wade Hinnant is a really nice guy who is training boxers when he can get a hold of them. I don't know where some of the other guys are. But, Jerome's dead, so we know where he is. He was, I've never met anybody exactly like Jerome. I've met a lot of criminals and people like Alfonso Heyman that were tough guys. But Jerome was so much fun to be with. And I think he used that to get over a lot. But there are certain people, I'm sure we all have known people like this, that you really like being with them, but you really know they're no damn good in a way. It's just, maybe it's just a weakness. But I stayed friends with him through all the bullshit. And I just liked him. And I was sorry when he died. But hey, I'm glad I knew him. I'm glad I went through those experiences, because that's where you get the best stories from, I think. The things you've experienced yourself, like Bill's story about his amateur boxing and stuff like that. That's, you know yourself better than anybody else. And sometimes you can just find a story. I never really thought about it until it just flashed through my mind. And I sent Bill an email and said, hey, I want to do this. He said, go ahead, fine. So that's probably the best part of Ringside Seat for me, that you get to do what you want to do.
It's only because we have such great writers that they come up with such great ideas. If it was a bunch of Scoop Malinowskis, it wouldn't be the same thing. No offense, Scoop, I'm sure you're not watching anyway. When you mentioned the fighter who robbed the bank, Nigel, I thought of Clifford ATN. I know we're just a different guy, but I'm just thinking of another guy. It's Caveman Lee used to rob the bank, right?
Yeah.
I remember Clifford ATN after he retired after the Tyson fight. He went crazy and robbed the bank. He probably still is in prison now.
Yeah, he did a bunch of things on that little terror. He was hijacking cars and almost had a shootout with the cops. And, I think he was a guy that he got out of jail, of course, and he made a lot of money. He didn't know how to handle it. And when the money went, he reverted back to what he used to do.
Right.
And,
exactly.
That's understandable, I guess. But it's sad. He wasn't a bad fighter. I think he was
ATM we're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
When he when he fought Tyson, he was obviously scared shitless. And, you can't really count that one, because a lot of people felt that way when they fought Tyson. Yeah.
The website is ringsideseatmag.com.
Excuse me, I'm going to fix that.
Thanks, T-Man.
Yeah, thank you, T-Man. Absolutely. I will fix this. Thank you very much.
One of the best things about Nigel's piece, by the way. Oh, I'm sorry. One of the best things about Nigel. Let me just say this real quick. One of the best things about Nigel's piece is the title and the subtitle. Couldn't get better than that. The Misadventures of a Frontman, 10% at the top. Perfect.
Absolutely.
That's
perfect.
Great. It's
very noir-esque. Absolutely. Yeah, that's.
It's funny. I don't do this on purpose, but when I start to get into an article, I realized that I'm just tweaking my style a little bit. And I think certainly the opening when I was leaving Madison Square Garden was very noirish. And also, all the crime and all the other crazy stuff that went on. So it's, at the time, I thought I was going to make a lot of money. But that didn't really bother me. It's just life is one experience after another, and some of them can be mined and turned into something else. And I think all of us here do that.
Sure. It's all about having good stories. Don, I'm sorry I interrupted you before. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just thinking a couple of 80s heavyweights did some bank robbing too, I believe.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't want to say the wrong names. I'm afraid to, mention somebody who didn't rob a bank, but
there was a guy I remember. I'm forgetting his name now. He was a pretty good fighter, and he won a title. I think he was maybe a super middleweight or a junior middleweight, and he ended up robbing a bank, and the cops caught him a few miles down the road in a bar having a drink. I just can't remember what
celebrating.
His name is.
Yeah.
What did Dwight Muhammad Kawi, what did he do to wind up in Rahway?
Everything. Yeah,
Did he?
Yeah, it was armed robbery and assault and that kind of good stuff that happens in Camden a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it was bank robbery though.
I understand. Okay. Yeah, I talked to him before he fought Foreman. That was the only time I got to interview him. And I really loved him as a light heavyweight and cruiserweight for that matter. And certainly that first Holyfield fight, he gave him fits.
And he never had an amateur fight, a sanctioned amateur fight. He learned to box in the streets and in prison.
There you go.
Amazing fighter. Just amazing.
Absolutely. Another great piece, and I'm always interested in learning about Irish fighters and British fighters. But this Mick Leahy thing is a great article as well.
Yeah, Andrew Harrison knocked it out of the park, man. His opening paragraph just blew me away. Andrew's a really good writer. And I tend to use him primarily for stuff from England and the UK because we don't want to leave that segment of the boxing reader population out. And there's a lot of boxing media that's entirely in the UK that we never hear about. That's huge over there, right? So I know that there's a demographic out there in the UK that likes to read about boxing. And so I want to make sure we have one guy that's speaking to that audience if we can. And I'd like Andrew Harrison to be that guy for the kind of writing that he did in that piece. Just a great piece.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Oh, that's funny. I like what Don says here. I didn't know this. Vito Anduofermo told him that he once saw one of his opponents on America's Most Wanted.
That's funny.
That's outstanding. No, you're right, Bill. And that I truly listened to and watched several YouTubes and audio podcasts from England and Ireland because boxing's still a major sport in the UK. And that's terrific.
Exactly right.
I'm thrilled about that.
Sure.
And thank God with the internet, you really can, cover stuff. Boxing Monthly, I would constantly buy that off the stands. And I know that's still going strong. And also, God, it's been so nice getting back into boxing.
I think Boxing Monthly's over. I think they
Oh, did they wrap up?
Yeah.
Oh, is it Boxing News you're thinking of, John?
It was Boxing News.
Boxing
Thank
News
you,
is
man.
a week.
Yeah, monthly.
Right.
Boxing News is a weekly magazine, which is crazy. There's actually even Sports Illustrated isn't even a weekly anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been writing for the Boxing News on and off for a long time. And I think it was 1902 or something it started.
Wow.
It was in the first decade of the new century, or was the new century back then. And even during the war, when paper was short, they continued to publish. There wasn't much fighting during the war, except in the armed forces. In fact, Nat Fleischer did a smart thing during World War II. He would have heavy print runs, and he would send free magazines to all the branches of the service.
Wow.
And they would give them away. And what he knew was that when the war was over and these guys came home, a certain percentage of them would start buying the Ring magazine. And it was a great thing because, the government helped him, distribute them and maybe some sort of low postage or whatever. But I think he honestly did want to keep the men in the service and the women in the service informed. But his big plan is to increase the circulation when the war was over.
That's brilliant. That's like those Coca-Cola plants that they built specifically for the GIs overseas, and how that just kind of, hey, look, now look what's part of our culture. Coca-Cola is all over the place.
Had the one in Germany. He had the franchise in Germany, and he got very rich with it. Now.
That's where I was going. Absolutely, Nigel. You got it. Absolutely. No, I truly love stories like that, and I love England's attention to boxing. And again, this Leahy article is really, really informative. So everyone will really enjoy reading that. And then back to Philadelphia, the Blue Horizon account was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was going to say this is kind of a Philadelphia heavy issue with two separate features that mention Russell Peltz, Nigel's and Bob Ingram's. Bob Ingram, first time ringside seat contributor.
Oh,
a friend of Nigel's, and we talked about having him write something for us, and he pitched a story about a mostly true account of some events at the Blue Horizon, and I loved it and said, let's do it. It's a very good piece. Very good piece.
Very funny. Yeah, and especially... Go ahead, Nigel. Excuse me.
Write for a lot of publications, but the main one was the underground newspaper. It started out being called The Distant Drummer, and then it became The Drummer. And it ran from the late 60s to almost the end of the 70s before it folded.
Was this a Philadelphia underground paper?
Yes. And it was brilliant. I mean, Bob Ingram was not the only good writer they had. But, there were many, many underground newspapers at that time.
Oh, yeah. There was one in every city, sometimes multiple.
Ramparts was sort of like one that was national.
Right.
But it was a great newspaper. I mean, I loved it and bought it for years.
What did they cover?
Be a little newspaper box, actually.
What did they cover? What does underground newspapers cover?
Well, obviously politics. That's what started it out in the Vietnam War. The counterculture and all that kind of stuff, but it branched out into everything, local characters, literature, politics, sports, humor, mystery, you name it.
A lot of music coverage too. A lot of live music.
Oh
coverage.
Yeah, it was.
The scene. The music scene in rock and roll at that time in the late '60s, especially.
It was great. I mean, so much. I actually saw Janis Joplin at the original Electric Factory. I mean, stuff was really happening back in those days. Well, maybe it's happening now, but I'm just not aware of it.
I don't think it's happening. I don't think it's happening.
Well, it's kind of with the internet, it's become its own thing, and it physically doesn't happen the way that it used to. No, I'm with you, man. But I was going to say, interesting timing and talking about that era. I'm assuming you guys are watching the Ken Burns Ali documentary.
I haven't started watching it yet.
I've recorded it, but I haven't started either. And I was one of those guys who said, "Oh, great, another Ali documentary. Great. We haven't seen enough, but I got to watch it. There's no way I can't watch it."
I'll watch it. I'm hoping he does it. He's honest,
I know what you mean.
The Ali has been deified, and stuff has been. I'm not saying you have to do everything that's bad, or a complete,
you're right, Michael.
A complete warts and all type of thing. But that one that LeBron James did on HBO was an abomination. I mean, the way they handled the whole Ali Malcolm X thing, it was just a lie. It was just a flat out lie.
Well, they do a lot. They do a lot of warts and all about Elijah Muhammad. And certainly the conflict between Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X.
Well, Netflix has a documentary called Blood Brothers, which is based on a very good book. The authors are actually, interviewed on it, and it was an excellent book and a very honest book, and it really brought to light a lot of things that even I didn't know.
Actually, it's kind of weird. They interviewed me for that. They actually paid me, and plus my expenses, and I wasn't in it, but that's fine. The check has been cashed, and
You were in the Blood
money
Brothers,
is in.
in the Blood Brothers one, not the
Yeah,
Ken
the
Burns one.
guys they wanted to interview me. They agreed to what I wanted as far as
Nigel, so I
money.
watched it. What did you talk about? Because I was like watching it, and you had.
I think I
and
understood when I watched it why I wasn't there. I was disappointed. I would only be disappointed if I hadn't been paid. But being as I had like a year ago, it takes a long time to make a movie or a documentary. You know, I was like it was never coming out. So, well, basically, I can't remember everything, obviously, but I did tell a story about a friend of mine who actually went to see Malcolm X at the old Philadelphia Arena where all the fights used to be in the old days. And I relayed that story, which was, I thought it was very interesting. Muhammad Ali was there, but he wasn't up on the stage. He was down, you know, in the front row. And after the whole thing broke up, nobody was rushing up to see Elijah Muhammad. They were all crowding around Muhammad Ali. And my friend, I didn't even know this, he always used to carry a knife in those days. And when you went in, you were frisked. And they took the knife away from him. But the cool part was they gave it back to him at the end. So all that stuff probably just didn't really fit the format that they ended up with. That happens all the time. I mean, you know, you work on TV for like 3 hours and they show 3 minutes. You know, that's just that's the way stuff works. So I don't really care. As I say, I got the money.
Well, I again will point everyone to Ringside Seat number 15. That's the new issue, and already out both in print and digitally. And here's a nice shot of the cover.
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon by just searching for Ringside Seat 15, and you can go to the website at ringsideseatmag.com to order the digital edition, or you know, you can get the print editions through there too, or any of our back issues or any of our books, our annual books that we put out. Also, you know, there's links to that. You know, we do an annual book every year. Bill picks out, you know, the best stories from the year, and we publish a book of it.
Well, guys, I want to know what you think of some of the upcoming fights that we got this weekend. Obviously, the heavyweight title, Anthony Joshua's belts on the line against Alexander Usyk. And there's a bit of a tale of the tape that the Sun had in their magazine. But now all the British podcasts that I listen to are saying it's going to be a much more competitive fight than you would think, given that it is one of these giants like Anthony Joshua versus the former cruiserweight champion Usyk, who's had a couple of, just okay heavyweight fights, not really showing the same talent he showed at cruiserweight. But what do you guys think of the matchup?
I saw Usyk fight live against Mike the Bounty Hunter, the son of the old bounty hunter. And he was in the fight. And he was dropped. And Usyk got the decision, and it was a fair decision. But he was boxing the hell out of him for a while. Speaking of Mike Hunter, he's gained a lot of weight since then. I guess, you know, he was a small heavyweight and, you know, he wanted to be bigger. But he was small when he fought Usyk because I guess they were both cruiserweights. And I've seen Hunter since then, and he's slowed down. It's never a good thing to put on bulk just for the sake of bulk. So I think that, just to finish it off, I think Usyk's going to lose. I think he's going to be outpointed.
Go ahead,
Don. What do you think?
Oh,
yeah.
I don't like that because I think that he can be outboxed, and he's going to get outboxed.
You think
I don't
think
think he's going to get knocked out. I don't think, nobody's going to take any risks. I think it'll be a boxing match. I hope somebody gets knocked out. There's nothing I like more than knockouts.
Yeah, I think Joshua kind of needs to score a knockout. He needs to, I don't think if he runs around like he did against Ruiz in their rematch, I don't think that'll be good for his, potential, earning in the future. I think he needs to look good. And I was thinking the other day, if I was as big and built like Anthony Joshua, I would just go for the knockout, and if it doesn't come, then you can spend the last 4 or 5 rounds boxing and moving and winning rounds. But yeah, I would go for the knockout. And I think, like we've already said, Usyk hasn't looked great as a heavyweight. So I think the knockout's there for Joshua, unless he's really just not as good as we've been thinking and hoping.
He stopped knocking people out.
Yeah.
Early in his career, he was a puncher, and he would just go in there and try and knock their head off. Now, I think since he's had a lot of money and a lot of success, and he's a huge public figure with endorsements that could probably, feed his family for several generations, he doesn't seem to want to go for it the way he used to. Of course, the Klitschko fight, he was forced to. And I don't think Usyk's the kind of guy who's going to force Joshua to slug it out or turn back into the puncher we thought he was a few years ago.
What do you think, Mike?
I like Usyk as a cruiserweight. I mean, it was great watching him. He was a dominant cruiserweight. And I've only seen one fight of his. How many fights has he had as a heavyweight? I've only seen one.
2 or 3.
2.
Chisora and the other guy, and I can't remember his name.
Chaz Witherspoon.
Witherspoon, thank you. Chaz Witherspoon, absolutely.
I saw the first one that he went.
That was Witherspoon.
Yeah. And it was, boring.
Yeah, Chisora was very much in his fight. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I think Joshua.
We're all picking Joshua.
What
about you, Don?
That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, we're all picking Joshua, but different results.
I'll agree with you then, Nigel, and say that I'm picking Joshua as well. I was high on Usyk until the Chisora fight, and he's got the skills to beat these big guys, but I don't know. There's something missing. Like he doesn't want to engage enough, or I don't know what's going on with him. But if he fights Joshua like you fought Chisora, and to a lesser degree Chaz Witherspoon, safety first, Joshua will just outbox him on the outside and with his jab and just win a decision.
The thing with Usyk is that I like him to win because he's a funny ass guy.
He sure is.
He's funny,
yeah. A lot more personality.
Great personality.
Yeah.
It'll be a lot of fun to have him one of the heavyweight champions or title holders. But I mean, he's just so funny. I mean, when he has those videos of him dancing and with Lomachenko, and I don't know, the photo bomb picture of him and Bob Arum.
That is the best.
Yeah, I mean,
him coming into the ring and just photo bombing that.
He gives you more than just boxing. He gives you something to laugh about.
Absolutely.
Well, if he lands the right shot, Joshua could go down. We've seen it happen already. So maybe Usyk could be the new Max Fair.
And he can hit with both hands. I mean, that's the thing. I think he's a very balanced offensive fighter when he's on his game and everything. So, no, I do think he's got the talent for an upset. Can he get inside and do it effectively and really and I think Joshua, because of the Ruiz scare, might be smart enough to not let that happen like he did against Ruiz. I don't know. I mean, there's a teeny little bit of me that would love to. I mean, obviously, we all would love to see an upset. That's the greatest thing that always happens in boxing. But yeah, I just kind of. I also think that given that Josh was the house fighter in this fight, that's less likely as well. I don't know. Before we leave the heavyweights, though, they announced Dylan White and Otto Wallin. I am a massive Otto Wallin fan. The way he busted up Tyson Fury, and the only reason why Tyson Fury won that fight was, again, he was the house fighter. And yeah, he outpointed Wallin. If it wasn't the champ and it wasn't the champ's house fight, they would have stopped that fight.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, my God, he was bleeding so much.
Yeah, that cut was
Excuse me. I agree.
So I like his chances against Dylan White a lot.
It's a good fight. It's a good matchup. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Guys, any thoughts on, because Dylan White has, I don't know, maybe I got a subconscious thing against Dylan White, but it seems to me as big as he is, I don't think he's that talented, frankly.
Yeah, I would agree. He had some good moments against Joshua in their fights, but he's not the best guy out there, and I'm not that impressed with Wallin, but I think he should do. He's okay, but he should do well enough to beat Dylan White. I think.
I want Andy Ruiz to regain the heavyweight title.
No.
His first fight with Joshua I had more fun at that fight.
Yeah, that was
watching it actually on TV. It was great. I love that shit.
Well, that's why it's like beyond Fury, Wilder, and Joshua. I think Ruiz, if he's serious and gets himself in the right shape and right frame of mind, is certainly talented enough. I think even though Luis Ortiz is like the Satchel Paige of the heavyweight division, I think he's still dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know. Getting it together is that's the key phrase there.
No, I'm with you guys. Absolutely. So what's going on with Triller? And I mean, yeah, Holyfield embarrassment aside, I mean, we're hearing now that they're jerking around this Lopez Cambosos fight that's supposed to happen in a couple weeks, and they want to move it. I mean, it was on a Monday night, which isn't the greatest. I mean, this isn't the 70s when they used to have big fights on Monday nights, right, Nigel? Like Ali Frazier and stuff.
Yeah, they were on any old time, really. Sometimes during prime time, during the night. And Larry Holmes did that. Most recent one, probably.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with them, and I'm really not interested. But I guess they want to get serious because this is a serious fight, right? For the hardcore, yeah. It's not just freak shows. So this is an interesting fight. So, but I can't get. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with them.
Put some money behind it.
Yeah.
Triller. Brett Kavanaugh. I don't know where he comes from. He's like kind of the front man for it. I know Snoop Dogg is involved and has been from day one. Really? And you guys know that.
Snoop Dogg to appear on their shows. But, I don't know. Jim Lampley declined to call the fight.
He declined to call the Holyfield fight.
Hired. I guess he was under contract, and they decided, okay, if you don't want to, do this, you don't have to. But I was sort of glad he did. It showed a lot of, spunk. Probably lost a big payday, and he was 100% right.
But is he not? So is he not going to do the Lopez fight?
I don't know. That's all I heard was he didn't do the Holyfield thing.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if he could object to this fight on moral grounds. It's a good fight. It's a good matchup.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I'm sure he wouldn't, but I don't know if they'll let him. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I would.
Has anyone heard what sort of attendance there was for the Holyfield thing on Triller? Or were there,
attendance or buys?
Was there
the buys were low? Buys were really low. I don't remember the number, but yeah, they were embarrassingly low. Yeah,
I think it was only
the fact that anybody bought it at all is, pretty bad.
Yeah, I think the live gate was only a couple thousand people, Don. 2/3 of which were Holyfield's kids.
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. Exactly.
His son got cut from the Eagles. He was
get cut
in the preseason games.
His son did get cut.
The practice squad and get another chance, but it's hard to tell in preseason games because everybody's got their third string in. But he looked like a pretty good running back to me.
He was playing last year, wasn't he?
Not for the Eagles, but he might have been playing for somebody else. I'm really not sure. He might catch on with another team that needs a running back. Or he may be on.
He impressed the hell out of me when he was at Georgia. Yeah.
Before we go much further and before we wrap up, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that Mr. Stradley's book is out now.
Yes.
The War.
Wait a minute, I got it somewhere.
Oh, lovely. Because I'm sorry, Don. I didn't have time to get the cover and put it up on the overlays as I've been doing it. Ooh, I like it there. Nigel on a mission.
I was gonna hold up a copy, but I thought that would be a little.
Please do.
Ringside seats time. So I just wanted to.
No, it's kind of you, Don, but
we'll
share it with you.
There it is. The War.
There it is.
Yep. and I've been tasked with reviewing it for the next issue. So Don, just send the check to me, and it'll get a great review.
Yeah, and not only that, we'll be running an excerpt from it in the next issue as well.
That's great. And no, I was telling Don before we started recording that I have every intention of having Don back solo to talk about the book. I'm really looking forward to it. It was a great moment in time, and I think I've talked about it before with you guys that I was a DJ in Bloomington, Illinois, and on the air when the fight was going on. I believe it was a Thursday night back then, and
it was a Monday.
Was it a Monday fight? It was a Monday fight. There you go, man. Yeah. And oh my God, I was like literally when I wasn't playing a song, I was sitting in front of the UPI teletype machine waiting for the next round by round description, and it was fantastic. And oh my God, just 2.5 rounds of just mayhem. And of course, since I've watched the various fight calls, I mean, God, Al Michaels and is it Al Michaels and on Showtime now?
Bernstein.
It is Al Bernstein. Yeah. No, it's a great call. That's a great call.
Yeah, I liked the book because it gave me a chance to go back to that time period, and I was pretty young back then, and it was interesting to revisit it. Starting out with what I remembered. Was that
as an adult? Right, revisiting it
as a geezer. Right. Now that I'm a geezer. Yeah. I was able to, I had my memories that were very specific because I saw it at the Boston Garden on closed circuit, so to compare what I saw with what everyone else was seeing around the country, that was a fun part of the book for me. And also, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, but the closed circuit version that we all saw in movie theaters was slightly different from the HBO camera setup. There were slight differences, and the HBO version is actually, I think, superior to what we saw in the movie theaters. And I go into that a little bit in the book too, just trying to let people who were not born at the time know that seeing fights back then was a bit of a crapshoot. You'd go to a theater praying that the fight would actually appear on the screen. There was no guarantee, and that was also the beginning of pay-per-view. That was sort of a new thing going on at the time, and a big part of this fight was Bob Arum scratching his head wondering, should I go with this pay-per-view or should I do it on closed circuit, which he had great success with over the years. So the boxing business was starting to change in 1985. And so I had a lot of fun just trying to squeeze that all in. It's not just the 3 rounds of mayhem, which was great, but also just the way the boxing scenery was starting to change. The gloves were different. They were starting to use the thumbless gloves. That was only a couple of years in. 15-round fights were now 12-round fights. That was a very new development. The IBF was a new addition to boxing at that time. So the landscape was starting to change, maybe for the worse. I don't know. But I try to get all of that in. It was a very interesting time period. I liked being able to look back at that.
Yeah, today was actually the anniversary of the first Spink Holmes fight.
Yep.
Wow.
Which was a 15-round fight.
Yep.
Yeah. Didn't last
Don,
long.
Don, I'll read the book, certainly, but I want to ask you while we have you here about the story that Emanuel Stewart liked to tell, that somebody was massaging Hearns's legs in the locker room before the fight, and once he saw that, he knew that Hearns was not going to do well. Yeah. And did your research prove that to be true, or is that a myth, or what? Do you know?
Well, it does seem true. He was talking about it almost as soon as the fight was over. He was talking about it with the Detroit journalists at the time. We were not getting the whole story in the rest of the country, which is another aspect of what boxing was like in those days.
Sure.
Nowadays, he would just go on ESPN and talk about it, and everybody would know about it.
Right,
But back then, the information was kind of dribbled out. In Detroit newspapers, they were talking about the infamous massage. Now, interestingly enough, Tommy Hearns would not talk about it.
Really?
Yeah, he would, and he didn't even want to talk about his broken hand because he injured his hand in the first round. He wouldn't even talk. Hearns wouldn't talk about that. It wasn't until people saw him wearing a cast on his hand that he finally said, "Yeah, I hurt my hand." He didn't want to, take anything away from what had happened in the fight. He wouldn't talk about massages, wouldn't talk about his broken hand. About a year later, when Tommy was going to fight Schuler, he started saying, maybe I did too much road work. I was running too much. And I did hear from a person in the Hearns camp, or in the Manuel Stewart camp later on, that Tommy was sneaking out at night doing extra leg work, extra road work.
Okay.
Because I think he had it in his head that, he had to train twice as hard for Marvin.
Sure.
And he ended up with no legs,
Interesting.
And he was also running on the beach because he was training in Florida for part of the training. Running on the beach wasn't good for him either.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of issues, and the massage, I think, was just one part of the story. And Emmanuel, he liked to lean on that,
Right,
but
sure.
I did hear from some other people that Emmanuel told them, as soon as I saw that massage going on, I knew this was not good. But there was a whole party atmosphere.
Yeah.
On Hearns' side, there was a big celebrity party kind of atmosphere. And, some people will argue, they say that's how Hearns was. He liked to have a little party atmosphere going on. It kept him loose. They don't know if he would have done any better if he did not have the party atmosphere,
Right.
So I try to address some of that in the book, Bill. Sure.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm
I mean,
looking forward to reading it.
Did he get massage for the Barkley fights too?
Or the James Kinchin fight, yeah.
Yeah,
Or the Roldan fight.
You got to hand it to Hearns, though, because, everyone remembers, and really, God, those Sports Illustrated photographs, I still remember vividly when the issue came out, and you saw them literally, like, it looked like they were carrying Tommy's corpse out of the ring.
Yeah.
But, man, he busted up Marvin up until that knockdown, and up until that knockout. He really ripped up Marvin Hagler, and I really think it takes close scrutiny of those 2.5 rounds to really appreciate what Hearns was able to do before getting knocked out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One thing I did try to do in the book too was give Hearns his credit for two great rounds.
Yeah.
He had 2 amazing rounds with Marvin Hagler just chomping at him, which how many guys would have given Hagler 2 great rounds?
Totally.
Caveman Lee didn't, so that's one thing I tried to do in the book was try to elevate Hearns a little bit. And also something I tried to do in the book was there's been this mystique over the years that, Marvin just hated him so much that he came flying out of his corner and tried to kill him. That's been sort of the urban legend that grew up around the fight. And I dispel that a little bit, that it was really a strategic thing that Hagler did. He had worked on that. He had worked on that style in the gym with Bobby Boogaloo Watts playing Hearns while Hagler chased him around the ring. That was a very strategic attack that Hagler and the Petronellis had been thinking about for years because they were going to fight Hearns a few years before that. And the fight was called off. Even then, they thought, we're going to charge at this guy and keep him moving back. That was the plan. It wasn't born out of hate. It's not because he despise Tommy's money or whatever. It was a strategic thing. So I go into that in the book too for those real hardcore fans who like to hear about strategy and training and that kind of thing.
Good.
Well, the book is out now, and again, people can pick it up through Amazon. Are you guys selling it at the Ringside Seat Mag website as well?
No.
Okay, no problem.
But
and we'll talk, John.
You can buy it through the publisher, Hamilcar Publishing. You can buy it directly from the site. You can buy it from Amazon. Also Amazon UK for our vast UK audience. And we do try to get it in bookstores. We have a distributor who tries to get it in bookstores. So hopefully it's out there, and I hope people can get to it and read it and have fun with it. That the thing I've noticed that the people that I've talked to, they seem happy that I wrote it, because it did kind of take them back to the 80s. I think they like that.
Good.
Excellent. And I'll remind people too that Nigel and I spoke last month about Travels with Mary Jane, his excellent European tour, trying to score some fun stuff to relax to, and that's a great collection of stories. And then coming soon in a few months, looking forward to Bill's book on Matthew Saad Muhammad. So that's going to be great when it's ready. And of course, in the meantime, read his Ezra Charles biography. That is so great.
Thank you.
Absolutely, man. No, so that's terrific. I know, Bill. I know you're up against the clock. Real fast, Alvarez and Caleb Plant. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I have so many thoughts on this fight because they're currently my two favorite fighters, and I know people hate Caleb Plant, and
is it Caleb is it Caleb or Caleb?
It's probably Caleb. I never pronounced the name right. I never pronounced that name right. I don't know why, but I loved watching this guy box. And I know that some people don't think it's exciting, but man, this guy's got moves that nobody else makes in the game today. They might have been commonplace 30 years ago, but man, this motherfucker can box. And he might get destroyed by Canelo, and that'll be a drag because people will just say he sucked anyway. So, but that's not really the case. I think he's a really good fighter. And these, again, are my two favorite fighters, and I think I think Canelo's the best fighter in the world, and Plant has the potential to be. So I can't wait for this fight.
If it happens,
the cut on his face is going to cause it to postpone.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
No, it's on his cheek. It's on his cheek, really. It's
under his eye.
And it's scheduled for what, November?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
so we've got time.
There's been a lot of cancellations lately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it doesn't get rescheduled, and I'm really looking forward to the fight. At the same time, again, I'm dreading it because one of them has to lose, I suppose, and it probably will be Plant. But I love watching that guy fight. I love watching Canelo fight too. They're both really good fighters.
Honestly, that's
Did you like the little scuffle?
Yeah. It seems like for once it might have been actually authentic.
That was a good show.
It looked authentic to me.
Yeah, but it seems like what happens that, well, I guess if one of the guys is bleeding, it's probably authentic, right? But it's hard to tell because it happens at every big fight. Now the guys get into a fight before the fight, but I don't know. I'm just looking forward to that fight a lot. I like both guys a lot.
It's a great matchup, and that's what I started to say. These the last 2 years, I really think, thankfully, we are starting to see some of these fighters fight each other close enough to their primes where we're getting good competitive fights, and that brings us back to the cover story there of Ringside Seat 15. And there they are, the Brad Pack, Haney, Garcia, Lopez, Shakur Stevenson, and Gervonta Davis. Here's hoping more matchups will come, and we'll see less of this promotional silo action that we've seen in the last few years. The last 20 years. Who are we kidding? So, but thanks, guys. As always, great conversation, and reminding everybody again to buy the magazine either at here it is, Amazon.com or Ringside Seat
Mag.
Man, I don't know why I went back to Mag, but it did.
You gotta change.
Sorry about that. But yeah, Ringside Seat Mag.
And here is the print edition. So, and you can get that on Amazon.
There you go. And once again, great art direction, Michael. Well done. It's always a beautiful It's always been a beautiful digital magazine. It's a beautiful printed magazine. The annuals always look great as well. And congratulations on the great stuff you guys write for every issue. It's always a pleasure having you on and to talk about this stuff and to read every time a new issue comes out. So congratulations on 15, and I'm looking forward to 16.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. Tomorrow night, are you a Battlestar Galactica fan? I don't know if any of the four of you are Battlestar Galactica fans, but the former cast member Aaron Douglas, who was great in that ensemble show from the early 2000s, will be joining me. He's written a new graphic novel, and we'll be discussing that tomorrow and talking about Battlestar Galactica here on Word Balloon Live. So thanks for watching.